Welcome to I Have Some Questions. The show is all about asking questions our guests have never asked themselves before, never thought about, or been too afraid to explore. It's designed to uncover the human story at the root of successes and failures and help us as an audience learn and grow from that story. My hope is that you'll hear brilliant guests exploring new ideas and challenging themselves in new ways of thinking. I think this makes for great conversations. I'm going to bring on entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, scientists, and frankly, any vein of super interesting, successful, and passionate human I can find. I am fascinated by passionate people, and I have some questions for them. I'm Erik Berglund, and I hope you'll join me every week for new episodes. Welcome back to I Have Some Questions. I am your host, Erik Berglund, and today we're going to dive deep into a topic that's pretty difficult for everybody I know. In fact, it's one that's top of mind for me because I have to answer this question in pretty rapid order here. Pretty quickly, I need to get to the bottom of this. This episode's really focused on what you should be saying no to. And for some context, this is really designed around time and priority management more than other types of things in your life you might need to say no to. It's more around how the heck do I fit all of the things I'm supposed to be doing in my life into my calendar? And usually we start asking ourselves this question around some sort of breaking point, right? Some sort of acknowledgement that what we're doing isn't working, that we have too many things, right? We got 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound box. So we're here to answer this question today. What should you be saying no to? And look, I obviously don't know you. And I'm using this time more specifically to answer this question myself, hoping that in so doing, it can yield a process that will be valuable for you to think about for your own application. But this is something I coach around all the time in a number of different areas. This is something that is frankly easier to tell other people what to do than to do it yourself. And I wanted to break down a couple of the different strategies that people have shared with me that they use. I'll share with you what I use. And ultimately, as I work through this, I'm thinking in parallel of like what I'm going to start saying no to more of. So the best way to start figuring out what you can say no to is to start by figuring out what you want to say yes to. And if that seems hyper obvious, good. It should be obvious. That is exactly what we're trying to do, is to focus on the things we should be saying yes to instead of the stuff that we should be saying maybe or no to instead. But quite often, especially if you're busy, if you run businesses, have a family, lead other people, volunteer in your community, have close friends, if you have any of those types of like multifaceted aspects of your life, it's pretty easy before you know it to have an absence of clarity of what you're really driving towards. What's important to you right then? You're going to have multiple things that are important to you in different aspects of your life. And so a couple of these strategies I'll share that I'm going to work through are built more for business life, personal life, and others are built more for balancing them all out. But getting clarity on what you're trying to say yes to is the number one first step so that you can begin to say no to something. I'm going to share a couple different strategies here with you of valuable tools that I've used or that people have shared with me that are effective for figuring out that clarity. The first I'm going to share actually came from an episode I did last week with Andrew Anderson. He laid out a strategy he uses for his business coaching clients, and he has them do this for their personal life and their business life, and they do it on one sheet of paper. And on that one sheet of paper at the very top, they write their number one goal. You can only have one. It's really, really hard to have only one goal with your family, let alone your business. But if you had to pick one thing, what would it be? You take that one goal, you write it at the top, and then you write out below that the 3 priorities that are going to lead to the accomplishment of that goal. If you do these 3 things, that goal will happen. And below that on the piece of paper, you're allowed to write 5 strategies for each one of those priorities. So for each priority, you only get 3 of, you would then write 5 strategies that might lead to the accomplishment of that priority, the fulfillment of that priority. So what you end up with is on this one sheet of paper, one for your personal life, one for your business life, so I guess 2 sheets of paper, is 15 things that you're allowed to say yes to or focus on. Those are your North Star. Those are the things that you are now doing. Those are the only things for you to prioritize. If the things you're going to add to your calendar or the meetings you're going to take do not support those, you probably should not be doing them. That's one method. That's one that I liked that Andrew shared. For years, I've used a different matrix, one called an Eisenhower matrix, you may know it as the name of, or an impact urgency matrix, but this is a separate tool. But you take, again, one sheet of paper, and you draw on it a big cross, a big T, right? A quadrant, a line horizontally and a line vertically that intersect in their middles, right? And on the horizontal axis on the left, you write impact. And on the, that's on the vertical axis, vertical axis on the left, you write impact. Horizontal axis on the bottom, you write urgency. There's an arrow going up and an arrow going to the right. So anything in the upper right is high impact and high urgency. Anything in the upper left is high impact, low urgency. In the lower right, it's high urgency, low impact. And in the bottom left, it's low impact, low urgency. So if you were to have a master list of everything you're supposed to do, you could plot it out against that matrix and start to get a sense of where your priorities should live. Anything that's high impact and high urgency, do it now. Anything that is high impact but not very urgent, you can schedule. Block out time in your calendar. That's going to be a recurring theme here. Anything that is urgent but not important, not impactful, you can delegate and start to ask the question of who could do it for you. And anything that's neither important nor urgent, you can start to recognize you probably shouldn't be doing, and you can delete that. This Eisenhower matrix is an incredibly effective way to do priority management. Look, I don't think you can manage time. I'm not a big fan of the concept of time management because I can't manage time, but I can prioritize where I spend it. And that's what I'm really going to try and do. And getting a clear sense of your priorities is a powerful way to do that. This tool, the Eisenhower matrix, is really effective if you have a master list of all the things you're trying to get done. And if you don't have that, it can be kind of challenging to use that tool. You can use it. I'll add a tool to it here in a second that'll be helpful. But the difference between the first tool I used, right, the one with the one goal, one sheet that Andrew shared with me, and this one is that these activities in the Eisenhower matrix don't really focus on what your number one goal is. And your basis for determining what's urgent and what's important can be very subjective. So it would be fair then to say it might be important to do Andrew's one-sheeter, and then based on the work or the items you have to do in the next few weeks, because you have clarity on your goals and your priorities and your strategies, you might be in a better position to use the Eisenhower matrix. The Eisenhower matrix is something you can use again and again and again, weekly if you want to, daily if you need to, versus the first tool, Andrew's, is probably something to maybe do quarterly at best. You probably shouldn't change it much, right? Unless you're accomplishing the goal. But that goal would be very big if you're accomplishing it very quickly. So these could go hand in hand. Another powerful tool that goes hand in hand with the Eisenhower matrix is the 168-hour tool. There's only 168 hours in a week. That's all you get. And so what you can do, again, similar, a single piece of paper, maybe a yellow pad, or you can do all this digitally too, right? You can just pull up in a Google Sheet or Note or something along those lines. But in the 168-hour tool, what you're going to do is write down all the categories of your life, things like personal care, things like mealtime, things like work hours, things like make breakfast, shower, sleep, things like walk the dog, get the kids to school, drive time, literally everything that takes you time that you do every week. And you make some categories of those in a bullet pointed list, and then you write down all the stuff you have to do every week. And what you actually do is map out how much time each one of those things takes you, and you'll quickly see if you have more than 168 hours or less. Quite often we feel overwhelmed when we do this exercise and we realize the reason that you're overwhelmed is because you have too much to do. That's really helpful to know. Other times people feel overwhelmed, but they go through this exercise and they realize they don't have nearly as much time as they think, or they have way more time than they think they have. They actually are in a better position for time than they thought. And that means a lot of times that you're spending more time worrying and in anxiety than you are actually limited by your time. But the Eisenhower matrix and the 168-hour rule, those are very powerful things you can use every week to help you figure out how to apply your time. Neither of them really sets the North Star for what you should be saying no to. They're just tools you can use to effectively implement the no. So let's get back to another tool that's very effective at helping you figure out what you should prioritize, what your North Star really is. You can think of it through this lens. What skills do you need to be growing in? What experiences do you want to have more of? And what responsibilities should you be taking on? If you answered those three questions against a timeline, right? So you might say, okay, for the next 3 weeks, the next 3 months, the next year, I want to grow in this skill. I want to get better at networking. I want to get better at my openings of my sales calls, my needs analysis with clients. I want to get better at showing up on time, right? I want to do better at managing my time so that I am on time to my kids' practices. Like, what skills do you want to get better at? And then what experiences do you want to live through more of? Maybe for the next season of your life, you want to live through more or less social opportunities. Maybe you want to live through reading more books. Maybe you want to live through finishing that TV show, or more time with your dog, your wife, your kids, whatever it might be. What experiences do you want to prioritize in your life? And what responsibilities do you want to prioritize in that season? Is this the season for you to work on your home? Right? Is it the season for you to embrace travel time because you need to go see family for the holidays? Is it summer and you just need to minimize your responsibility so you can play? I don't know. But what degree of responsibility are you going to take on? If you had clarity on those three questions, skills, experiences, and responsibilities, you would be better able to orient your compass and know what you're trying to say yes to. Those are 4 different ways to think about it. The one-sheeter, skills, experiences, responsibilities, the Eisenhower matrix, the 168-hour rule. These can be tools that would help you get clarity on what you're saying yes to. Because once you have clarity on yes, the second question becomes, well, what good things are you going to start to deprioritize? What things don't fit anymore? And it's important to recognize them as good things, just not the right things. You have so many good opportunities in your world. You have so many things that could be good for you, but which ones are the right things for you? And it can be very helpful to sit and jot down the things that are good in your life that you're not going to do anymore, at least not for this particular season. I'm going to give you a specific example that I've already come to the realization of as I'm talking here. I have to take less random networking meetings. I do an enormous amount of networking in my community and digitally. I meet a lot of new people. I get introduced to a lot of new people. But based on some of the things I need to prioritize, some of the skills I need to build, and some of my goals, I'm going to have to start saying no to those types of opportunities. I also have a number of social trips I really want to take, friends who I've been longing to see, and I'm just realizing I kind of got to deprioritize that. Not because I don't care about that person or because I don't want to do it, but because it just isn't the right season in my life for that to be what I prioritize. So once you have that clarity, start to think more tangibly about your life and recognize, like I've just done, like 2 specific things that are good, but are just not the right season. The third thing to do, the first was to get clarity on yes. The second was to make a list of the good things you're going to start to say no to. That doesn't take us to the end of the exercise. That's just a starting place. Just gets you warmed up for the exercise. The best way to figure out what you're going to say no to is actually to sit down and do this exercise. Like you might sit down and get a sense of your clarity, or you might write down a few things you're going to say no to, but until you sit down with the intention of looking at your calendar, that's where you execute this, is in the calendar. So until you block out time in your calendar to take your notes on clarity and what you're saying no to, and to sit down and maybe go a little deeper on it, but more than anything, to make sure that what you've said in your mind is reflected in the prioritization, the way you run your life. If you don't run your life on a calendar, that's fine. What do you run it on? Is it some home chalkboard? Is it sticky notes? Is it a to-do list, right? Like I used to have? Is it a day planner, a week planner, something along those lines? But if you don't put it in there somewhere, if you don't review what's currently in there and start to take things off that no longer fit, then you're not going to really fulfill the purpose of this exercise. You're not going to have clarity on what you should be saying no to, and you're not going to be taking action on that. That's your third step. And your fourth, and by the way, just for what it's worth, again, I'm working through this mentally right now. And some of the things I'm thinking I need to say no to. The fourth, though, is then you got to communicate it. You should probably tell people, right? So these friends I'm going to deprioritize this trip with, I should probably tell them why I'm canceling it. Not just canceling it, but like actually communicating. This isn't the right season for that reason. And again, I do an enormous amount of networking. And so I already know I have some things in my calendar that I need to go cancel because it's just not the right season for me to be opening brand new doors that don't align with the doors I've already opened. And so I need to communicate that with those folks and cancel it. But I have time in my calendar. It's next Wednesday. I have a 2-hour block to sit down and map all of this out and to put it into a form where I can look at my calendar, map it cleanly, and say no to a bunch of things moving forward because I have to. But I got to communicate that to everybody along the way. My wife, my business partners, people along those lines. Those are the 4 steps I need to go and run. So like, what are some of the stuff I need to say no to? Like I mentioned, it is definitely the random networking meetings. That's a big risk for me. I personally have to think through a number of different big business opportunities that are all really good. We have an enormous number of potential opportunities, and figuring out how to support them all or which ones really aren't aligned is a pretty critical thing for me to think through at this point. And all that's going to happen for me next Wednesday in that couple hours I've blocked out. I hope to some degree this is helpful. My intention in sharing this wasn't to teach you how to say no to things, but I suppose I ended up doing some of that. It was more a verbal exploration for me of like the tools at my disposal in order to do so. But I do hope that it helps you answer the question, what you should be saying no to. Start by saying yes. Make a list of good things that you need to say no to. Block out time in your calendar so that you're more capable of sitting down in depth and blocking them out in your calendar even further, and then communicate it to all the people involved. Hope that's helpful. It's been helpful for me to walk through it myself here, and I hope to catch you next time on I Have Some Questions. I'm sure I'll still have more later. See ya. Thanks for joining us this week. Don't forget to take a second and subscribe. Maybe even share this episode with somebody it made you think of or someone you think would take some value from it. This show is all about uncovering the brilliance and humanity of high performers. And whether those performers have a massive following or a podcast or a book, or they're a business owner, or they're buried somewhere in a corporation, or maybe they're a nonprofit leader, or they don't necessarily have to have a title. I'm really fascinated by people who are passionate and who are doing interesting things. So if you or somebody you know would be a good guest, don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn or send me an email at hello@languageofleadership.io to make that connection. I'll see you next week.